Uh, that explanatory note kind of the last piece of information that maybe you might consider at this trial. It's the first week as they in court. We kind of are here, as we told you before, to satisfy all your needs as judicial power, since you have legitimacy presented, to have your needs satisfied. There will be no problem on an act like this. But if you have no legitimacy, I think that you are, underqualified, or you are not qualified to request your information or things like this by the loss of legitimacy. And then you insist on this, you probably will commit violations of privacy, property, basic rights, guarantees, and some areas. This is a reality, and one of the issues at this trial. You please consider take a look on Risk Report 2022 tracemay.blogspot.com. It's an independent effort. The last post it's about white-collar crime, fintech, and corruption. And it's recommended the criminal conviction of all, despite maybe by your home police, expertise, knowledge, and the experience of case. Some of you are really experienced. So you will maybe have different application as punishment, the same application of the law to declare them all guilty by corruption, but having a criminal police may be according with circumstance and main objectives even in the near future as 2028, having the declaration as punishment different. Some criminals can cooperate, or some criminal organizations, and they will achieve privilege. In the same way, some companies can cooperate and will deserve maybe a tax privilege or something like this. Or if you reported or noticed or got, officially reported about risks of a investor group or a CEO or something like this, you can have the interference and walking through this and maybe suggest or order to replace the CEO or have state members on it to at least one or two researching the environment and having the preventive control in the way we suggested since from the very beginning of 2014. We observe that it's reported about our current conjuncture with huge failures, with failures inside the institution that only goes by the continuity of the institution. Failure as purpose, at least not explicit declared, but the failure is there. We had a struggle on Europe, even as a simulation, it doesn't matter. It's a struggle. And we had a Pacific agreement, with at the other side. And we had an agreement as South America named BRICS that carried the same elements as misusage of shares and prerogative, public or corporate, with migration of modified data, or public stamps certifying things that indeed only puts the illusion even more explicit. And the pandemic event as illusion indeed is a fraud, and fraud is always against the law. But only will be sustained or have the continuity as maintenance by the corruption, that is a crime in the same way, and then we will have the systematic evaluation as behavior sinks from the corruption which impact your basic rights and guarantees as citizens, as research, as international cooperation, even declaring this, and things go on and on affecting other jurisdiction by the disrespect of constitutional premise, the judicial power not respected in the same way, and then the constitutionalism and the entire Western culture and civilization. Things that we fight hard since 1789. And it's there. We will check that it's recommended to have from this trial international financial information, not considering only the white-collar crime law in Brazil. The trial is made and not by other judicial power. And try to have similar traces at the Pacific Agreement and the current struggle on Europe and the functional relation of two both by hopes, by illusion, by certification of things that not represent the reality but have the continuity and the development even as thematic panel on global events like Davos and others. And how BRICS carry this and having one driver at the situation with a lot of structures behind, very similar to the deep web, as a micro and small research as pattern, research pattern that belongs to the operational research. One strong driver is on UK, it's named the Art Society. And have one on America named the IIA, maybe you can trust them. And this Pacific Agreement can be at the show if we have holographed patterns of redistribution of purpose and interest, biological gaps, statements, contract, even on the application of the law by the lack of capacity, which is a material result as do not have the integrity to apply the law against corruption. Corruption is exactly the loss of integrity. Then we will check that this procedural hearing going at the embassy, which carry the legitimacy as judicial power to be on it, at the very first moment if you have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Google and the Microsoft, as pretension to request 33 trillion each one in the way we exposed it, maybe this can reveal or unveil elements that will allow you to have a better decision as investor, or about the price of commodities with an adjustment on South America by two or between two national states that have serious problems, especially as financial accomplishment as payment of threatened debts assumed. And then we will check that this can carry as this macro agreement as BRICS, the struggle and the Pacific Agreement, European banks. And one of the issues at the NATO is for sure choke the clandestine ways and the illicit storage that are supplying the continuity and the existence of threats, the threats we own, and are protected by misuse of chair, institutional prerogative and order, that indeed there are none of them to commit crimes, protect criminals or keep protecting the protection of criminal results, like we have in public budget Brazil by the misusage of prerogative and chair, notifying registry record, which is a criminal 313A, and can be associated with abuse of power, which is a law. And we have as result the mandatory need as habeas data to protect public data and relevant data on public department, which by inference, according to the judicial system in America, is a logical sense that allows you to declare the guiltiness. And the idea is like this, we have our model offering, and this will help you, perhaps, to understand. For instance, if you have the parallel rat race on energy, and paramilitary mobilization. And you can have all this from public budget at destroyed by the Hero Nimbus with all notation elements and segments inside the public budget Brazil since 1988 up to 2022, projecting things up to 2028 and having stranding to compensation of the loss pointing to the insurance sector. For instance, do you consider that the high prices of oil and energy, which it has an implication as gas, that you pay at the gas station, and you have one big company that had problems in the past, Brazil for instance, the Petrobras, then you will check that you will offer this big company as an auction, but we have a model, financial model, named Fleury, which indeed goes like you pay things on present time, compromising your future, and sets very, perfect with this model. If this company offered by Brazil to the market, considering for instance the America, and we have a decision to buy this, by the failures up to, from the past up to the point of this done deal, we might consider maybe the possibility of everybody, for instance, the truck drivers and the farmers, having a petition by syndicates or something like this against this company that sets the price of oil and now belongs to, for instance, an American investor group. And they will have to pay the price, I would say, as buying this company at this conjuncture that has no capacity to present things by transparency and accountability. Will be very close to a fraud scam against the company. And they will kind of have the capital fixed asset offered and will have to sell things or go away from Brazil like the Ford Motors did and others. But this goes, and now it goes by the system of justice that has this kind of decision. This is our explanatory mode. We'll finish here. Let your honor has judicial authority and institution with the analysis of this case in this very first week as they in court. As I told you before, we are here to supply all your needs since you have the legitimacy to get and have these needs supplied. We offer much more than a case which in the disclosure you only have to present the declaration in the very first moment against institutions on budget failure with concurrent interest as criminal association that must do the regression against the specific hand as offenders that only goes by those hands. And if they didn't have like this, you can't put this institution down. But for sure, you can have constrictions in many ways, and we are having as pretension here, the main pretension, the research as this 33 trillion by interest affected, for sure. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and my interest as independent capacity to have thoughts and creation and development of things. And maybe the Microsoft and Google equally able, if had the legitimacy declared to research discredit, and by equity any other company as American business or inside the umbrella of this court as judicial power, if declared has this legitimacy to research discredit and having failures on it associated with them as company, they must request and offer them to the court that you will declare the guiltiness of them all. And I really expect to have this boat launched this year, at least until the FIFA games. Have a good night.